Welcome to Design Thinking Games, a gaming and user experience podcast. Card-carrying UXers Tim Broadwater and Michael Schofield examine the player experience of board games, pen and paper role-playing games, live-action games, and video games. Play through the backlog on your podcatcher of choice and on the web at designthinkinggames.com.
In the beginning, there were rocks. And then when those rocks were broken up, they became the Quarry.
Specifically broken up by Septimus Hackett. I think that might have been his name. I forget his it's something stodgy like that, right?
It was totally Septimus Hackett.
We should just preface this entire thing. So those of you who have joined us for this journey on the long haul know that Tim and I really love these as like I was going to say supermassive style, but literally made by supermassive choose your own adventure style games. We've talked thoroughly about the Dark Pictures anthology. I think all of them that have come out so far, and a whole bunch of others. The Quarry just released, I think, in the last 7 days, like recently in the last week or two.
10th. June 10th is when it dropped.
June 10th. Tim and I have beaten it. We're probably just going to go spoiler in real soon.
Yeah, I don't care. We can spoiler cast. I cared before, but I don't care anymore.
Yeah, we don't care anymore. Look, it's like when you lose everything at the end. It's like you... like the things that you hold dear are just cast aside. The Quarry is the latest supermassive game. Supermassive, who made Until Dawn, again, all the Dark Picture anthologies,
Man of Medan, Little Hope, House of Ashes.
House of Ashes. It is a choose your own adventure style of game. The specific mechanics tend to be choosing dialogue and quick time events. But it is kind of like a master class in branching scripts, decision trees, what if scenarios. And the idea is that, you are helping tell the story or helping narrate the story of often 5+ different characters, and all the choices you make have like truly like thorough like endings. So
it's interesting to me that Supermassive, they don't have a market on this game. There are other games that are similar that are, there's some parts that are like interviewee, conversation-y stuff that, I would say that Mass Effect or Horizon Forbidden Dawn have. There's also similar games that are like Detroit Being Human or The Wolf Among Us.
It's The Wolf Among Us. That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay. So they don't have the supermarket on it, or the market on it, or the stock market on it, or whatever market you want to say. But I will say, when it comes to the feeling that you are in an interactive horror movie,
yeah,
Supermassive has it down, man. And how it works, to some degree, is that you control a cast of players or characters. You can make decision tree conversation choices, which kind of reflect, like, is your character an asshole? Is he nice? Is there love interest? Things like that. In addition to, as you search the world, you can kind of uncover clues which unlock story paths. If you don't search and you just power through the game, there's a lot of paths that are blocked off to you. But then, in addition to that, when you're in the moments of scary horror filmness, there are skill checks or quick action checks. Yeah. And so it's kind of like the combination of you're piloting a cast of characters in a horror movie. You choose how you want them to interact and be portrayed and what their personalities are like, and then how much you want to explore and how you respond to stressful quick actions all sculpt this very specific web that is subjective to you, the player, playing at that time. There's multiple different types of endings. Everyone can die. It is possible to where you can come out at the end that it ends prematurely. But all of these games kind of have like a 6 to 10 hour cap on them, right? Because it's like an actual movie that plays out.
Right. A miniseries, maybe, right? Like I forgot about, like, when I was kind of going over like the mechanics. What are the mechanics of the game? Make some choices, choose some dialogue, play some quick time events. I kind of forgot about the wander around slowly at walking speed, and searching every kind of like nook and cranny.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that kind of like a lot as a gameplay mechanic, because there are like on the surface, there are a couple of reasons I think that this kind of gameplay could be a little bit of obnoxious. It has what is effectively like a stilted control that I think of as like old school Resident Evil, where the camera is like fixed. Sometimes it's behind the character, but sometimes it's fixed in place, like in the room, right? And you have to kind of like navigate around, and you have to kind of like wander around. But what I've decided is that what this makes you do, even if there's not a whole lot to do, you can wander a little bit off path and find something, like a tarot card. What it makes you do is like really pay close attention to the screen, because you can't just walk to the next screen. You can't. I guess you can, but like in this case, you're not just walking to the next cutscene. You are meticulously walking to the next cutscene, which makes like the jump scare or the horror or the cutscene just that much more impactful. So it's scripted very much like a series. It makes me think of like you could map this and probably watch this in movie mode over like 6 to 10 hours, and it'd be maybe a similar experience to like House of like what is it, like the Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix, or Hill House, or even like a Stranger Things.
You know what the camera angle also makes me think of? It makes me think it's a director choice. Like it is, there are some places where you want the camera behind the character for that suspense, but there are other places where, like a horror movie, which is, kind of very much, we put the camera in the bushes and you're watching the people from afar to create like, am I being watched? But then there are places to where you're going through a haunting or creepy kind of stairway, or maybe like cellar, and the camera's fixed in a corner so you can kind of get an understanding of the space. So it's that director cinematography shot kind of thing. Design Thinking Games is a proud affiliate of Hunt a Killer. Enter the world of Hunt a Killer in their newest murder mystery season, Mallory Rock. This realistic murder mystery game delivers high-quality, handcrafted evidence that brings a fictional case to life. Can you solve a mystery with Hunt a Killer? Go to designthinkinggames.com/huntakiller or click on the banner at the bottom of our website.
It's a very artful. It's like, the art director really had their hand on this entire game. It's a very directed gameplay, which is great. Like, I mean, like, there's a reason that you and I love these games, right? Like the story is good. It feels your own. You feel. We were talking about this with like the House of Ashes, where like the core narrator throughout each of them is this like antiquarian or librarian style character that you pointed out is potentially literally the character of death, but this kind of like,
it's different though with the other two.
Well, and then you are backed out with this narrator.
I think narrator's a good word because it's used differently in different ones, but yes, like narrator's a good word.
Well, that whole mechanic like really kind of makes you feel at fault. Like there's on one hand, it's like, oh shit, you missed a quick time event, you broke your leg, or something like that. But when you kind of abstract out to the narrator, and you are no longer really these other characters, you're responsible for their fate. It just like makes like your poor choices even more impactful. Like, ooh, I didn't break my leg, I broke her leg. Like, I'm so sorry. You know?
Yeah. One thing I'll say that is interesting that Supermassive is doing here is that they have Until Dawn, who came out like 2014, 2015. Mm-hmm. And then you have since then the dark anthologies or dark picture anthologies, which is, you know, kind of Man of Medan, Haunted Boat. You have Little Hope, Haunted Town, and then you have House of Ashes, Haunted Crypt, and the Middle East, right? And then there's a fourth one that's coming out, and we know that from when we're talking about it that is an encapsulated season. They're calling that season 1. And there's already clues in those first 3 games at how the games are related. And so there is definitely kind of a American Horror Story kind of feel to where like, hey, all of our stories are related and we all have the same actors portraying the roles. We just are kind of changing it up. However, in those, you're right, there is the narrator who is kind of like Death, and he is the same person in all of Man of Medan. However, the difference here is with Until Dawn and with the Quarry, this narrator character is a part of the story. They're not outside of it. Yeah. So in Until Dawn, you, the entire time between sessions, are talking to Dr. Hill. And I know you haven't played Until Dawn, Mike, but Dr. Hill, and this is, sorry, spoiler alerts from 8 years ago, essentially, you kind of find out he is a therapist, and you know that because you're meeting with him in his office, and he talks to you like a therapist does. But you kind of find out, well, maybe not a spoiler alert, that, he is indeed a therapist of one of the people who's a member of the cast that you're controlling. And it is not revealed until the very end who he's kind of talking to and how he's dealing with all of that, right? And so, like in the Quarry, and I will say this, and spoiler alerts, cut out whatever, I, on my first playthrough, had... I uncovered the whole story. I know everything that's going on. I got all of the clues. I got all of the evidence. So there's nothing to where like it prematurely ended and I didn't figure out what was really going on. I got the whole story. So I understand. Now, I had 7 counselors die. and then one of them, you know, not spoiler alert, like something bad happened to one and only one survived. But the narrator person in the Quarry, who is this fortune teller woman that you were working with, I know how she relates to the story, and I know kind of what her ending is, and I know who kind of I am who is talking to her. Yeah. And I don't know how much of the story you uncovered. You may have got the whole story too. I don't know.
Well, we should talk about it. So the Quarry, the whole idea of the Quarry, right, is summer. We open kind of just at summertime, the night before, like I think like a whole 24 hours before camp starts. The conceit is that
Camp Hackett's Quarry, right?
Camp Hackett's Quarry, yeah, Hackett's Quarry. And what is the motto, Tim?
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's a terrifying, like, real life, like, motto.
That's summer camp, bitch. That is summer camp.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, like, the idea is that, like, there are camp counselors who are going to have, like, a great summer. There will be like summer flings, they're the counselors, of course. And so there's like other kids there.
You control 9 camp counselors, essentially.
A well-designed war game is hard to make, but if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know we stand Hell Let Loose, this realistic, immersive World War II shooter that not only requires that you play well, but that your squad plays well together. And well with other squads. There's no HUD, there are no scopes, one shot and you're down. If you can't fortify, flank, and suppress as a team, you lose. And because of that, in my opinion, Hell Let Loose deserves many game awards. If that rings true and you want to help the show, consider downloading it through Gamersgate. No, not that Gamersgate. The Gamersgate that came before the controversy that hijacked the name. Gamersgate is the world's largest online store for PC and Mac games, more than 4,500 of them. And if you download Hell Let Loose or another game through designthinkinggames.com/Gamersgate, it'll help us keep the lights on. I'll see you on the beach. All the kids are absolute dicks, right? Because like without like just like saying okay to authority, like they've put everyone in danger, including themselves.
But I totally understand Jason Voorhees now and why he just fucking sees blood and sees red and kills camp counselors, because they're all shitty. They're like the horrible like people. They make the worst decisions. They're awkward, and then they're self-serving, and they're just like teens who are asshole dicks. So the fact that I came out in the end with 7 dead counselors and 1 surviving, I was just like, I don't feel so bad.
Which counselor did you make? Did you make it?
Oh, the geeky artist girl is the one who survived.
Abigail? Yeah.
The geeky artist girl. Did she? And everyone else died. So what about you? What was the ending like for you?
I came out a little. I want to talk about my journey here. So, like, I came out with more survivors than you. I found that
wait, you said Abigail in such a way that made it like, why? She should be dead.
But why is she like? I mean, like, she's the only one. Like, what happened to like Emma, the girl? Like, they survived together in my story.
So then I must ask you before you get to like your death and the ending. Like, did you have any love?
No, not really. No,
you didn't get the gay kiss.
I didn't get the gay kiss. I
think there's possible for 2 gay kisses, as well as there's a possible for a lesbian kiss, a gay kiss, and I think there's a possibility for like a hetero kiss too, or 2 hetero kisses.
So let's talk about romance, because there were definitely, like in my game, there was definitely a few romances they were trying to put up. A couple of them I was actually shipping. So one was like the Abigail Nick romance. That didn't have a lot of time to mature. But then there was also Emma and I think her name was Emma. Emma and Jacob. Jacob is the jock. They had a summer fling. Jacob was not ready to let it go. Emma's like, hey man, we had a good time, but she doesn't seem like necessarily like a bad person, especially as you go. But it's a summer fling that she has decided is over. Jacob doesn't like it.
So you didn't have a Ryan Dillon kind of thing?
I had Ryan Dillon. I was shipping Ryan and Dillon. They never got a kiss though. But they were always like, I was playing them like that together, but I never got any romance option. I got Abigail and Nick to kiss.
What about Abigail and Emma?
No, that was not even an inkling.
I don't know. Like when you first come on Abigail, she has pictures in her book that I believe she's drawing that are literally of Emma.
Yeah,
she's drawing Emma, and then there's like these places where Emma's trying to push him to like, you should get with Nick, and it's kind of like, no, I want to be with you, so I didn't know.
No, I didn't. Like, I mean, I should have picked up on that bait, but no, I totally like missed that entire thing. So there was no Abigail Emma, and I really wanted like Caitlin, who was like this I think clearly the most competent person there.
Her death pissed me off so much, but yeah.
well, saying she died for me too, but she didn't have any romantic interest. She seemed to be into like Ryan, but because I was shipping Ryan and Dylan, that was the thing that was going on.
When I first interacted with the crow, and you're walking around and you're like crow, and you hear it, and then you start looking for it, and then you see them.
Yeah.
But because I could interact with the crow, every time later in the game when I heard a crow, I'm like, oh shit, this wanted me to look at something or want me to investigate something. And I did, because it helped me find the reason that I found all of the clues and all the evidence and all the tarot cards is because I was conscious of the sound of the crow, because I found out early in the game that I can interact it. And it's funny because I had to shoo it away.
The crows were helping you out, because the conceit is like, this lady, this narrator you're talking to, she has crows everywhere, right? And so, like all around her. So I wonder if on my next playthrough I'm going to pay attention to, because I bet those crows are like her.
So here's the other thing: when you are talking to her and you pause the game, it shows her face and she's just looking weird.
Yeah.
When you are in the menu system and you are looking, it's the crow. You see a crow and not someone's face. You know how it shows on the pause, you awkwardly look at someone's face.
Interesting.
And it just shows them doing like this and they're looking back and forth. And then you can kind of go in the pause menu and read clues and do stuff. Mm-hmm. When you are on her or in menus, you see a crow. So she's like, I was like, oh, she's the mother of crows, and she's seeing through the crow's eyes, or she's like,
yeah,
they're doing her bidding, or is she also helping me? Because every time a crow, I felt like she was helping me. It's like, well, she kind of has been with the crows, because she's been leading me all these clues and cards and evidence and stuff. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Like, my relationship with her was super suspicious. I miss the crows. And so when she's like, look how much I've helped you, I'm like, bitch.
That's interesting then. Yeah. So then we had definitely two very different experiences. Design Thinking Games is an affiliate of Space Engineers. Space Engineers is a sandbox game about engineering, construction, exploration, and survival in space and on planets. To find out more about Space Engineers or its new DLC, Warfare 2, go to designthinkinggames.com/Space Engineers, or just go to our website and click on the banner. One of the things that I like about Until Dawn and Quarry versus the Dark Pictures anthology, the Dark Pictures anthology, as you go, the story keeps morphing, and it's like layers of an onion that you're peeling back, and you're like, oh, this isn't booty pirates. This isn't just a haunted ship. This isn't just chemical warfare. You know what I mean? Or something.
Yeah.
Or whatever layers you want for any of the other ones. This one, the story is the same. The story doesn't ever really change. You're just getting like, can you get pieces of the story to know what's going on? And then depending on, I don't think that there's any way possible to get every single card, every piece of evidence, and save everyone on a perfect playthrough. However, I don't know if that's even possible without having to like replay and then explore and check. And I'm telling you, man, I look at everything. And of all the paths that were available, only 3 paths were not available to me based on decisions I made. And then when I look at the numbers of how many clues I got and how many pieces of evidence and how many tarot cards, I'm like, dude, I have to choose those other 3 paths to be able to get those other cards. So there's no way possible
to do this on a single playthrough.
There is no perfect playthrough, right? And I think that's the thing that I think you get with Dark Pictures anthologies, is that there is a perfect playthrough. But here in Until Dawn and Quarry, I don't think there is a perfect playthrough. You're just going to get different stories and different versions,
There's a different play. There's definitely a playthrough where you can get, where all counselors can survive. I believe that there's a playthrough for that for the Quarry as well.
Because they're so subjective, dude. Like what you get and what you experience is very different than what I experience.
Yeah, what I was going to say is like, they have the mechanics that like tie you close to the game or really suck your attention in, like the kind of difficult walking and kind of like wandering around looking for clues forces you to really invest yourself. They have these like cool things here just in the playing of the game itself, but the other like really strong quality here is kind of like the hallway chatter, like after you play or during or when you play the game. The fact that you and I have extremely different experiences here is part of the design of the Quarry, right? It's like they put something together that spurns conversation, which I think is key to supermassive success in this space. Like the reason they keep on coming back isn't just because it's all they can make, right? It's because these are super successful.
Mm-hmm. So
when you beat the game, you unlock an ability to kind of like rewind deaths, which I think is going to be kind of interesting. You can do like 3 per playthrough. But the other thing I'm curious about, and I wish I would have fired up the Quarry before you and I talked, because I wanted to see, was that after you beat House of Ashes, you can then go play the other characters' paths. So like while you go on path A as a specific character, in the playthrough, the entire other path, like what were the players doing who stayed back at camp? You know, like what was their path or whatever that you can play. And I wonder if the Quarry is designed like that too. I don't think that was true in like Man of Medan or Little Hope, but like
I'm also interested in the movie mode, which is like
yeah, what is that?
Well, the movie mode lets you choose, let it run, and it'll be randomly configured, and what happens. Or you can set up presets, like a settings, and then configure it, and then let the movie run. Wow. And so all of if you think about the gameplay, like, okay, take out all the walking and all the reading and all the interacting, and you're just watching the movie. Yeah. It's probably a 2-hour movie. Like, it probably doesn't take long at all. But like the director's already said, like about the game, it's like, oh, the movie's going to be different every time you play it. Like, there's no core story that is like, hey, this is the core movie. We'll randomly choose stuff every time you watch it, and it'll be different. Or you can go into settings and say, like, I want this character to be an asshole, or I want this character to do that, or be weak or a coward, and then play the movie. So I'm interested in like just the movie, but this is kind of an interesting thing that we didn't talk about before when we've talked about all these previous episodes. And I'm super excited for The Devil Within or The Devil Inside or whatever the next, I can't even think of the name of the next Dark Pictures anthologies film is, which comes out this year. There's a thing about video gaming, and there's a completionist gamer who's like, I want to get all the objects, or I want to unlock all the trophies, or I want to complete all the side quests, or whatever. But this game will never be that. This game will never, you can't have a perfect playthrough. You'll never have a perfect unlock. You'll never, there will always be tough decisions, and to get them, you have to make like bad decisions or crazy decisions, so there's no the thing about this that could bug people potentially, or this type of game, is that this is not a completionist game. This is not the perfect playthrough. This is going to be truly subjective every single time, and there's never going to be a similar playthrough. And so that may not sit well with some gamers, or that's maybe not the player experience that some people want.
There's a sort of like a design pattern that you just made me think of that I remember like being just kind of like a cornerstone of like how I've been like making apps and stuff in my short time here on this planet, and it's called the Zeigarnik effect. And the Zeigarnik effect describes the drive, or almost like the gravitational pull you feel when you begin a process but do not finish it. In like web design, the classic example here is one of those forms that that kind of like, it's like maybe 1 or 2 fields long, and then as you engage them, the form expands, revealing that in fact it's 10 questions long, or something like this. But the kind of like pattern of having, say, like a subscription form where you need your name and your email, a user is much more likely to be able to choose to subscribe to a newsletter because it's only 2 steps, right? Put in 2 fields, da-da-da. But what you can do if you wanted to capture more, and this is the Zeigarnik effect in practice, is that you can do it so that once they type in their name, then they type in their email, the next questions to send, and it is unlikely that the user who has already decided to begin the process will abandon the process in the middle of it. They'll finish it. So one of the things that like Supermassive does here really well is, I think, with this term, like the Zeigarnik effect in mind, is because it's deliberately not, you're not able to, there's no perfect playthrough. The ending experience of every single playthrough is one that is going to feel incomplete. It relies on kind of that design pattern to make you want to go back to play it again, because there is the promise of completionism over time. Like, you know, you can play Mass Effect like 3 or 4 times to get all the endings. You know, how many times does it take to play the Quarry to get all of the endings? And then ultimately, you know, like, just to take this like one step further, why other than for funsies would like Supermassive want to create games that really like rely on this? Well, it's because the more you replay a game, of course, the more you talk about it, but the less likely you are to like trade it back in, right? And like dilute the market.
So I think Supermassive games, and maybe they do, and I just haven't done it before. I know that Detroit Being Human lets you do this, is you could go by chapter to chapter and you could fix it. You could find everything.
Yeah.
I say fix it, but I mean, you could change your decisions. You could find things. And then your permanent record, or how it's permanently recorded, changes. I'm assuming, have you gone back and played any of the House of Ashes games?
Yeah, I went back and I played Band of Badan and Little Hope, and I have not gone back and played
House of Ashes.
House of Ashes is the game, right? So I haven't gone back and replayed House of Ashes, except for one scene where I'm playing as the totally different person, which was.
So does that do what you're saying? Does it fill out the complete?
Yeah,
you find all the evidence, you get all the cards, you found all the things.
I think there's you complete the game like when you get all the paths and you have all the trophies, right? But it requires 3 playthroughs to do plus, right?
Or playing through each chapter, or 3 chapters, or
so for me, yeah, going through Little Hope, I chose different things and I got a different ending, and I got more things. It's just at that time the promise of the promise of the reward for playing again seemed much smaller. I did not get the sense that the game would be drastically different from the first 2 playthroughs, and I only had a few collector's items I was missing that I just didn't care to go back through. Now, like if like I think House of Ashes tried to one up this, because like I said, you can go back and play the same characters with different paths, but then you can play the other characters too that weren't even an option for you in the first playthrough. So again, more playthrough potential there. And I wonder if the Quarry just, you know, did that exponentially on its own too.
Speaking of that Zeigarnik effect you're talking about, if it does postulate that people remember unfinished or uninterrupted tasks better than completed ones, I have no desire to get all the trophies in like this certain game or collect all the things in this game. However, I do in the Supermassive games. I want to know the story. I want to get a better score. I want to find out more about the story. And I do agree with you that I think they do that very well. That the replay value is they know what they're doing.
It's like reading a book halfway and then just abandoning it. You're like, oh.
Well, it's like the Pick a Path book, which is kind of like, but very complex and different. But it's to where like when you get a premature ending, you want to complete, but you will remember that you did not go open the treehouse cellar versus investigating the duffel bag, because then you will know what happened. You know, we will be back here in October, man. October of this year, we will be back to have this discussion kind of again with The Devil in Me. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like roll back through our backlog and listen to our episode about sequels. And while you're at it, smash that like, Starheart and favorite this episode on or this podcast on your podcatcher of choice. It helps us tease the algorithm in the sky to sprinkle its sweet manna all over us. We offer super affordable like advertising. You may have heard like an excellent ad here earlier in the mid-roll. We compose them ourselves. We make you look good, and it's super affordable. The cost of like a fancy coffee or a couple of them in a week, and you get a custom-made Design Thinking Games advertisement for you. We have a Patreon where we post these things ad-free, and we post them early. You can go to patreon.com/designthinkinggames, and we're on all the social medias. Look for us there. You'll find it. And just remember, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Thank you for listening to the Design Thinking Games podcast. You only have so much time, and it means a lot you shared it with us. To connect with your hosts, Michael or Tim, visit Design Thinking Games on TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter. DMs are open. You can also check out designthinkinggames.com, where you can request topics, ask questions, or see what else is going on. Until next time, game on.